Hey guys, it's Edie. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Hope you're all doing well. And in today's video we are going to be doing my, what month was it? June reading wrap up. I forgot what month it was for a second. So here I've got my June spread from my little reading journal, and I'm just going to go through first all the little statistics that I've got. So I read 15 books this month. 11 of them were romance, 3 fantasy and 1 like mystery / thriller. I read 8 physical books, 4 Kindles, 1 audio, and I had 2 e-arcs. And I'm just going to go through the books that are on my physical TBR that I didn't end up reading. I had The Friend Zone by Abby Jimenez. I have Capitana by, I believe it's Cassandra James, I want to say, and Archer's Voice by Mia Sheridan. I am actually going to get rid of Capitana by Cassandra James because I read the blurb and I'm like, I'm actually never going to read that, and it's got really low ratings on Goodreads, so I am selling that on my Vinted. And the books I did read from my physical TBR, I did DNF one of them. I DNF'd Emily Wild's Encyclopedia of Fairies because I got 20 pages in and I just could tell it wasn't going to be for me, and I was like, why waste my time reading a book that I know is not going to be for me? So I finished 2 books on my physical TBR for the month that I chose, and the first one I finished was Fan Service by Rosie Dinan, and this is like a werewolf romance, and if I remember correctly the MMC was like this like famous actor on, was he on a werewolf TV program I think, and the FMC was like a really big fan of it, and then like years later after the show's being cancelled and things like that, he ends up like turning into a werewolf, and he goes to the fandom, someone on the fandom who's really like, I guess, known in the fandom, and it ends up being the FMC in this book, and she has to kind of help him deal with being a werewolf if I remember correctly. And I ended up giving this book 2 stars because I did really like the sound of this book. It sounded so much fun, and it just flopped for me really, and I just didn't see the chemistry between the 2 main characters. I could just see them as friends, not more than friends, and I didn't see the tension, all of that stuff you want building up to a romance. I saw none of that. So the next book that was on my physical TBR of the month I read was Bright Lights and Summer Nights by Kat Singleton, and this book follows Emma and Preston. Emma, I believe she's like 25, she doesn't really have a dodge, she doesn't know what she wants to do with her life, and her best friends pretty much have their lives figured out, you could say. So her best friends are like, go to the Hamptons for the summer, see what you want to do with your life, figure herself out, because she's kind of having like a quarter life crisis, you could say. So she ends up going to the Hamptons, and I can't remember why, but she ends up climbing over a fence to get into this party, and this party is like a week-long festivities for like a wedding, and she ends up stumbling into Preston when she goes to this like wedding. And as soon as like Preston and Emma get into the actual venue and they see his family, because it's his sister's wedding, he pretty much says, oh, this is my girlfriend. So this is like a fake dating romance, and I ended up giving this 3.75 stars because I didn't struggle to get into it, I just didn't love it at first, but then I did feel like it did keep getting better and better, especially the last 30% of this book. It was just so much fun, so good. And there is a third act breakup, and I actually really liked the third act breakup because I was like, I understand the reasonings why Emma wanted the breakup and needed the time, and I completely understood it, and I was like, yep, you definitely need the time, you need, I'm not going to say much else, but I completely agreed with her. But then the thing that spurred her thoughts on for the breakup kind of did annoy me, but she needed the time. So now I'm just going to move on to the books that weren't on my physical TBR that I did read this month. And the first one is one of the e-arcs, and it's Gloves Off by Stephanie Archer. I forgot who it was by a second. Stephanie Archer. And this book is a hockey romance, and it follows Alexei and Georgia, and it's a marriage of convenience because they end up in this marriage of convenience because basically they both need something for themselves, and to get what they need to be married essentially. But they've never really got along at all because I believe, does she work for the Vancouver Storms? Because Vancouver Storm is the hockey team. I want to say she works for them if I remember correctly, because I read this right at the beginning of the month, so I don't 100% remember, but I think she works for them, so maybe it's like a workplace romance. They don't get along. I wouldn't say it's like enemies to lovers. I'll say it's a bit more dislike / hatred to lovers. But I ended up giving this book a 3.75 stars, and I always find Stephanie Archer's books are just so easy to read. They're very quick. I love them as well because they have really short chapters, and they always have me kicking and giggling my feet. This is probably my least favourite out of the whole series because this is the 4th book in the Vanquit with the Storm series, but this is one of my favourite tropes, and it also doesn't have a third act breakup, which is amazing because quite a lot of the times some third act breakups, when they're to do with miscommunication, are kind of annoying. This book is also Grumpy Sunshine, if I remember correctly, and Alexei is the grump and Georgia is the sunshine, and I feel like he goes past the point of being a bit grumpy sometimes. He's borderline on being a bit mean sometimes to Georgia, I would say, but I feel like he did kind of grow as a character at the same time, and he became less like that the more you got on through the books. So the next book I read was Savour It by Tara Jewett. This book follows Sage and Fisher. Sage has recently just gotten out of a long-term relationship, and Fisher has recently had some things not go so well at work. He is a chef and he ends up going to this small town, and Sage thinks of this one way she can up her ex, maybe get back at him, is entering into this like competition, but the only way to enter into this competition is by having a partner. So she ends up asking Fisher, and then dating rumours start going around, and then it kind of goes on from there. Also, if I remember correctly, Fisher has, well, it's not his daughter, it's his niece, but he's the legal guardian of his niece because his niece's parents, I don't know if it's his sister or his brother, passed away due to something. And I thought there's this cute, fluffy, small-time romance. I like the characters, I like the storyline, and I read this in my 24-hour readathon, and I quite often read Tara Jewett books in a 24-hour readathon because they're just so quick and easy to read as well. And there is a third act breakup in this, and it did have me crying because of the circumstances, but it made so much sense with the storyline that I didn't hate it, because if I remember correctly it wasn't a miscommunication breakup. The next book I picked up was Housemaid by Freida McFadden, and this follows the family of the Winchesters, which consists of a mum, a dad and a daughter, and they live in this massive house. They're very well off, and they end up hiring people to be able to help them with things, and they end up hiring, I've forgotten her name. Does it actually say in here on the back? I don't think it does. I can't think of the main person's name, but they end up hiring her to basically help out with their daughter, to look after her, to take her to school, to do what they need to. And as soon as she gets there, she gets these like creepy vibes, and they put her in the room in like the attic, and it's just very creepy, and all this stuff goes down, and there is a lot of twists, a lot of turns, a lot of things I did not see coming, and I feel like I am explaining this book very badly, but I don't really know how to explain it without giving the whole book away. But I ended up giving this a 4.5 stars because I just had the time of my life by reading it. Like I said, there's so many things I did not see coming. The plot twists had my jaw on the floor, and I really need to read the other books in this series, because I know this is being turned into a TV show or film, I want to say, but I want to read them all before it comes out because, well, I assume each book will have a film or season, but I can't stop thinking about it and all the things that happened in it. The next book I read was Hello Stranger by Catherine Center, and this book follows Sadie, and she is basically a struggling artist, and then one minute she's celebrating something that's happened to her finally, and the next she wakes up in a hospital bed with this thing called face blindness. And with her painting, she's very much a portrait painter. So face blindness is basically when you can see everything apart from, I think, the details on people's faces, I guess, is all blurred, so you can't pick up faces. So it's her basically struggling with that, trying to come to terms with it, seeing if she'll be able to paint again. And well, you think she has two love interests, but I'm not going to say what, but she ends up falling in love with someone. And I did have kind of high hopes for this book because a lot of people do really love this book, but I don't know, it just fell a bit flat for me. I don't really know why. Did I say what I rated this? I gave this 3 stars, but I just had high expectations for this and it just didn't hit like I thought it was going to hit for me. I think it's because I also just didn't feel that connected to Sadie, the main character, as well. That's probably why I didn't like it as much. I think I'm going to have to open my bedroom window because it is boiling hot. It's not as hot as it was yesterday because it got to like 33 degrees yesterday and it's like 10 degrees cooler, but I'm still boiling hot in my room, so I'm going to open it. And if you can hear noises from the outside, I'm sorry, but I can't sit here in this heat and like try and film a video for like an hour long. I don't even think it's going to help that much because there's not even that much of a breeze, but hopefully it will. So the next book I picked up was Bound by Duty by Cora Riley, and this is the second book in the, I always forget what this series is called, but it's like a mafia romance series. And this book follows Dante and Valentina, and Dante, I think it was like maybe 5 years ago, lost his wife, and Valentina a couple of months ago lost her husband, so they're both widows, and Valentina's father is like, we've got to find you a new husband essentially, and they think of the perfect person is going to be Dante, so they end up in this like arranged marriage, you could say. And pretty much the whole time Dante is very much still, I guess you could say, not over his wife's death. And one of the other reasons why Dante needs to remarry is because he's becoming the head of the part of the mafia he is in, so he needs to be able to marry someone and he needs to be able to have an heir to carry on his, like, I guess, legacy and the family line. And I ended up giving this book a 4 stars because I just absolutely love this series. These books aren't even 300 pages long, so they're always so quick to read. This one's 255 pages, so you can easily sit there and binge it in a day, and I just absolutely love mafia romances. Some of them are always quite similar, but I don't know why, there's something about it, all the action that goes on. But the one thing I will say, this series so far, all the main books in the series, the 2 that I've read, are in just the FMC's point of view, so you don't get all the nitty gritty sort of stuff you get when you're in the MMC's point of view in a mafia romance, but you do get to see some action. And quite often a lot of the women in mafia romances, not all of them, but some of them, they don't stand up for themselves in a way, I guess you could say. But I loved about Valentina that she just always stood up for herself. She never took anything from everyone, especially Dante. She was always like, no, I want to work, and he let her work, he let her have a job. And Dante, I just can't stop thinking about it. And I know they have a second book in this series, I want to say, so I'm very excited to get to that. I took a bit of a break because I was just getting so overly hot. Anyway, I'm back. And the next book I picked up was Conditions of Will by Jessa Hastings, and this book follows Georgia and Sam. Georgia is originally from somewhere, does it say what state in the US? South Carolina. But she basically got sent away for a boarding school when she was a teenager to London, and she's basically stayed there ever since because she doesn't really get along with her family, apart from one of her brothers that she gets along with. Her 2 oldest siblings she does not get along with at all. She keeps getting loads of phone calls from her sister and she doesn't answer them because she doesn't really like her sister. Then her sister texts her saying dad's dead. So she then has to go back home to where she grew up to be there for the funeral, for the for the wake and things like that. And she has to try, her brother goes back there, and her brother that she gets along with lives in, I think, somewhere in California maybe. And he's like an alcoholic, he has problems like that. Is he to do with drugs as well? I don't know, he has a few addiction issues. So he brings his sponsor with him, and his sponsor happens to be Sam. And Sam and Georgia instantly, I guess you could kind of say, hit it off. And it's basically them, they don't really do anything on their feelings at first, but then it evolves from there. And I ended up giving this a 5 stars, just purely for the fact of Sam Penny, because, oh, he was just so good in this book. Like, how he was just there for Georgia, and he was there for, I forget what her brother's name is, but he was just phenomenal and became one of my top, like, top book boyfriend list, that's what I was trying to say. And like, Jessa Hastings just has such a way with like words and her writing, it's always just so beautiful. And there is a certain mention of someone from the Magnolia Park series, because I did kind of have my what do you call it, I can't even say the word, but I did kind of think there might be, because Georgia is from, well, she's not from London, but she lives there, and that's where Magnolia Parks is set. So I was thinking, could there be some maybe mentions? And there was a mention of one character once in this book from the Magnolia Park series, and when that happened I screamed. And there was just quite a lot of twists and turns, and one thing I remember, this epilogue in this book did make me cry, and it was just a perfect ending to everything that happened in this story, that happened to Georgia, and I just can't stop thinking about this book. The next book I picked up was Heir of Broken Souls by Mads Rafferty, and this is the third book in the Heir of Broken Fate series, and I ended up giving this book 5 stars. I can't really say what this book is about because it will spoil the rest of the series, but I can kind of say what book 1, like the blurb of book 1, or a little description of book 1, because essentially it follows Princess Delilah, and her father is not a very nice person. He is the king, and he's not very good to the people, he's not very good to her, and she just wants to help her people. So she's always fought her whole life for, I want to say it's 150 years, the Fae have supposedly been gone, but Delilah discovers that they are actually alive, so she goes to the Fae for help, and that is essentially the little description of the first book. So if that sounds interesting, read this, because this series is just phenomenal. People always compare it to ACOTAR. It is very similar to ACOTAR, because I think Mads says this is like a mix of Throne Glass and ACOTAR, but just Nox in this book, Nox and Delilah, the things they're saying to each other, I can't quite stop thinking about it. And the way this ended off, I need the 4th book in the series, because I was like, I didn't know when I started reading this if there was going to be any more books in this series, and then I finished it and I was like, yeah, there's got to be more books in this series. So then I went on to Mads' Instagram, I was looking at comments, and somebody asked it, and she did confirm there will be another book in the series, so that is good, because if it ended like this, I would not be happy. The next book I read was another E-arc, and it was The Irresistible Urge to Fall for My Enemy, and I did not like it. I ended up giving it 1 star. I can't even remember what it's about because I just kind of blocked it out my memory, but I know it's like a romantasy, it's like an enemies to lovers, and she is, I think she's a healer and he's an assassin, if I remember correctly. It's something like that, and I just did not like it. The only reason I finished it because I got given it as an arc, and I don't really like DNFing arcs that much, but I was like, I should have really DNF'd it. That's why I gave it 1 star. If I ever give a book 1 star, it's because I should have really DNF'd it, because it wasn't for me. I can understand why people will like this book, but it's not for me, and I found out after reading it, I don't know if this was inspired by Dramini fan fiction or this was Dramini fan fiction. It's something like that, but it kind of makes sense after I finished reading it, because there was like no world building at all. If it had 50 more pages that had world building in, I might have given it a bit more of a high rating, but there was no world building. I was so confused while reading it. The first warning sign for me that I wasn't gonna like it should have been the glossary, because when fantasy books have glossary, I don't get along with that book, because me and glossaries don't work, because my brain, I need the explained on the page. I don't want to flip back, so that should have been my first warning that I wasn't going to like this book. But don't let this deter you from reading the book. If you think you're going to love it, do give it a go, do read it. But if you also struggle with books that have big glossaries, maybe don't read it, because you might find it confusing like I did. The next book I read was The City of Bones by Cassandra Clare, and this book is the first book in the Mortal Instruments series, and this book follows Clary, and she's been seeing a lot of like things other people can't see, and it turns out she's been seeing vampires and I forget what they call them. Oh, they're called shadow hunters, aren't they? And the shadow hunters are essentially these group of people that go out and eliminate all the horrible creatures and the werewolves, the vampires, things like that. And this is an urban fantasy because it is set in New York City, in Manhattan and Brooklyn, all that. And this book, I absolutely loved it. Did I say what I rated it? I don't think I did. I think I rated this 4 stars. And the way there's like a plot twist with like, what I'm going to say is mention the word siblings. So if you've read it, you know. But I kind of knew that was coming because I've seen very minor things about it, hinting at it, but I was in denial. I was like, no, that can't happen. And then it happened. I was like, no. But I still liked it. I'm very intrigued about the rest of this series, and I really want to finish the series this year at some point because I really want to watch the TV show. The next book I picked up was Seven Sleepless Nights by Chloe Walsh, and this is basically like a little mini, I guess you could say this is a novella of loads of little short stories from books she has written. And I've only read The Boys of Torment's like little chapters in here because I haven't read any of her other books or series. I gave this a 4 stars purely for the fact of The Boys of Torment. It just has little like extra scenes, but Chloe said she wants to rewrite this book, so that's kind of why I brought it and read it, because I was like, I want to have it. So then when she changes it, I've got this copy as well. But if you love The Boys of Torment or any of other Chloe Walsh's like series, you should definitely read this because it has loads of like extra scenes of those characters, and if you love those characters you're probably going to love this book. The next book I picked up was Hat Trick by Chelsea Curto, and I gave this book a 4.5 stars. And this book follows Riley and Lexi, and Riley's is part of the DC Stars hockey team, and Lexi is, what is she? Is she like a medical or a trainer, or she does all the massages for them, helps them when they have injuries, that sort of, she's that person on the team. And Riley has something very like horrible happen to him where he loses one of his legs, and that devastates him, that breaks him, because hockey is his whole life, that's what he loves, that's what he cares about, and he just thinks he's never going to be able to play hockey again. But Lexi's like, I'm going to do it, I'm going to help you, I'm going to find a way. So she ends up helping him, and then they end up falling into a friends with benefits situation, because they're like, we'll do one night, get it out of our systems, because they've always kind of had like a crush on each other, and it ends up turning into friends with benefits situation. And I will say this time and time again, but this series has my favourite hockey team of all time. Well, in books obviously, but the way they are just so close-knit. They have a book club. I think that should be enough to convince you to read this series. They're in like a book club, all the players on the hockey team. They have this group chat that's always so funny. I'm laughing each time it's on the page, and every single MMC in this series is just top tier book boyfriend material, and Riley is no different. He literally will remember every single little thing Lexi tells him about herself or things she likes, and he'll remember it. Years later he remembers it, and it is just phenomenal. And because of all the things with Riley to do with him losing his leg and things like that, this book did take me on a little bit of an emotional roller coaster. But then I just loved seeing him and his character growth and how he was able to come to terms with everything and how he overcame everything and I can't say that word, but persevered. I think that's the right word actually I'm looking for. The next book I picked up was Till Summer Do Us Part by Megan Quinn, and I gave this book a 4.5 stars as well. And this book follows Scotty and Wilder. Scotty works for a golf company, and she is one of the only females that works there apart from her boss, and every other of the guys she works with is in a very happy, supposedly happy, stable marriage, and she really wants to impress her boss. So they're all talking before this meeting, and her boss is there, and they're all talking about their I guess wives and marriages, and then Scotty's like, oh, I'm married, but then they're like, where's your ring? And she's like, oh, we're just having a bit of a rough patch. And then her boss takes her aside and is like, I know her husband essentially is a marriage counsellor, and she like gives him his number, and he's like, call him, he'll be able to help. And she's like freaking out because she's like, she's not actually married, she's not actually in a relationship. So she's telling her best friend, and one of her best friends like, oh, what about her best friend's brother? So she ends up asking him. They end up going to a marriage counselling session, and they end up signing themselves up to a marriage counselling camp. And it's basically them going to this marriage counselling camp. They have to pretend to do arguments, they have to pretend to not get along, but then also pretend to be in love as well at certain points. I listened to this book on Audible because I have some Audible credits, and Teddy Hamilton narrates it, so if you know, you know. But like, it was just so much fun, this book. The arguments they were having to fake was just fun. Everything about this book I really loved. But then also by the, like, not right by the end, but as you're getting further along, when they're having these fake arguments, they start getting a bit more real, and it's kind of sad at the same time because things from Scotty's past relationships get brought up in these like marriage counselling sessions. And I feel like if you love spice in your books, you're probably going to love this because Megan Quinn knows how to write spice. And also at the same time, if you don't like spice or you don't like much spice in your books, you probably won't like this book because it is like not described, but it is in this book. But let me show you. This book has like illustrations in it, if I can find one. Oh, I think I've just gone past one. I'm not going to show that one. That one's a bit, you could say, inappropriate. Why can't I find... Oh, I just gone past one. It has like illustrations in, you can see here. And there's also a coloured illustration at the front. And if you're looking for a fun summer read, that's spicy, that's hot, that's laugh out loud, pick up this one. The final book I read in June was Problematic Summer Romance by Ali Hazelwood. And I just realised this book, Till Summers Do Us Part, and Bright Lights and Summer Nights, I think it's that one. I've done a reading vlog on that, and that reading vlog's coming out in July. So if you want my full reaction of reading those books, wait to see those. But I gave this book a 4 stars. This book follows Maya and Connor. Maya is actually, is it Eli? I think his name's Eli's sister, and Eli is in another Ali Hazelwood book, which is Not in Love. And essentially Maya and Connor get invited to Eli and Rue's wedding, and the wedding is a destination wedding in Sicily. So they all end up going to their wedding in Sicily, but it turns out Connor and Maya have a bit of a past, a bit of a history, you could say. There's also a 15-year age gap in between them, and you're kind of following the timeline of when Maya was in university at Edinburgh and Connor came to her for a certain reason, and then you're also following the present timeline. I love this book. It is quintessential Ali Hazelwood book. It's fun, it is easy, the woman is always very clever, she's smart, she's intelligent, which I love about her writing. And the wedding, there's always something going wrong in it, which is quite funny in a way, you could say. But I just absolutely love this book. It's perfect summer read as well because it just feels so summery, especially if you're maybe going to Italy, and this is kind of set in Italy, so you should go read it. Because if you love Ali Hazelwood, you're probably going to love this one because it is pretty, it's different from her other ones, but it's essentially quintessential Ali Hazelwood book, if that's the right word for it. I don't know. I am boiling hot right now. I feel like I didn't do that last book, Ali Hazelwood book, justice of what I was saying, because I feel like my brain is just a mess right now because of how hot it is. But if you want to see like in-depth thoughts, feelings, look out for that video that's coming next, like the Monday after I post this video. It should be, if I remember correctly, or from my schedule. That is everything for today's video. If you did like it, do give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already, do subscribe so you can see more videos from me, and I'll see you next time. Bye!